So I'm aboard the Santa Maria, and this is when you come on board, right through there. This is not movable. This is some storage. Imagine that's a bathroom. This is at the hull part of the ship. Up there, but you go a different way. There's the Lynx over there. Most crew members slept on a mat or blanket spread over the main deck. Meals are prepared by lighting small fires on the main deck. The basic diet consisted of a pound cake, legumes, salted meat, fish, dried fruits, vinegar, and wine. The flooring on here is like so lumpy. It's really cool. There's another way to get down over here. There's another way to get down right there in that box. I wonder what that goes to.
That would be something fun to do in the future.
The difficulty sailing conditions didn't leave much time for entertainment, which was also halted by a maneuver that required the help of all men for rigging or sails. At sea, playing, talking, and reading, and for those who knew how, were the only possible distractions. Despite the express prohibition of games on board, cards and dice ran along the decks without being hidden, and the men gambled their breeches, money, and weapons.
But it would be kind of cool.
I wonder if the pirates ever got them.
Yes.
Yeah, they have to know about it.
Well, it may be going on.
This is the area where life of the crew took place, maneuvering, ground handling galley. Here, the majority of the men on board slept on mats, since the hull was used for cargo and gear. During navigation, waves frequently crossed the deck, reducing dry spaces to a minimum.
Yes. Sorry.
There's another cannon.
Hang on a minute.
Ooh. These are like straight upstairs. Work your upper core. the center of the command of the nail. On it, the pilot remained responsible for the navigation, could see the sails and the horizon. He had the basic elements to guide the ship: the navigation needle, the compass, situated on the binnacle, and the whipstaff. The deck was used only by the midshipmen. I thought that was a spider. Hi. This was used before the appearance of the Helian nanos and carracks during the 16th century. It's a vertical connection to the tiller and allowed the ship's steering. And the steering system of the ships until the appearance of the wheel in the mid-1800s century. Exercising the lever over the tiller allowed the crew to control the course of the boat without losing sight of the sails and the sea. Several men were necessary for control of the ship in bad weather. Here's some clothing of what they wore back then. See that on the window if I zoom in. There it is. The only cabin on the Nano was used just by the captain, the pilot, or the man of the greatest rank on board. It usually held just one bunk and a trunk and nautical charts, navigation instruments, the important documents. Non-officers' crews were strictly prohibited from entering the cabin without permission from the captain. And another one. I know these people had good abs and leg muscles.
Yeah, they look tiny. I mean, they came here one time. They look really tiny. I just wonder how they got across the ocean.
Wonder what those beads are there for.
Good to see you.
See them beads. They're right there.
You always think about the same ship.
Yeah, that's cool.
This is the Lynx right next to us. This was a boat used in the 1800s. The Lynx also next to us. It's pretty cool. A lot of history. I think I'm gonna go down backwards. So this is really an amazing piece of history, and I feel like I want to be a pirate, sail the seas. What are those beads up there for? What are the beads up there for?
Again, what is
The beads up there.
the bits?
The beads. The round balls.
Ah, the round balls. Okay. This is what if you want to put the big pole down,
Uh-huh.
it helps to do it not so rough.
Right.
So the balls help to you to go easily down. And if you want to rise again, the big pole, it helps to you again to put it on the top.
Do you sail on this?
Yes.
Is it amazing?
It is amazing.
Who gets to sleep in there?
No, the captain sleep there. We sleep downstairs in bunks.
We don't get to go down there?
Yeah, you can go downstairs
You can?
to the halls and you will see a small exhibition, the history exhibition, and you will see a small video clip which will show you how was built this replica. Normally behind one door we have a small living room with a kitchen and everything, and then there is another door we show you how we live in bunks. And actually, like in that moment, Christopher Columbus time, he lived here, or captain is lived here,
Right.
on that side.
All right, thank you.
Okay, well.
All right, now I'm going downstairs. Ay, ay, ay. Hi. Private. Not go in there. The hold. The ship's hold are usually full of food and merchandise stored in dozens of barrels, bundles, and drawers, making their environment unbreathable. For this reason, life on board was carried out on the ship's decks. Daily work was divided into 6 shifts, and only the meals broke the routine. The Santa Maria was the flagship with which Admiral Christopher Columbus carried out one of the most significant ocean crossings in the history. On August 3rd, 1492, it set sail from the port of Palos de la Fronte, together with the caravels Pina and Nina, and reached America on October 12, 1492, crossing an encounter between two worlds that had been unknown to each other until this point. Therefore, the Santa Maria 525 project came about with the objection of revealing history in order to promote the heritage, tourism, and culture of the province of Uvela, with the construction and development of one of the most recognizable symbols of identity. The Santa Maria ship was one of the most famous identifying features of the province. The famous vessel that recalls and invokes ships, sailors, centuries, old marine tradition, and the culture linked to the sea and the most universal history of maritime province of Spain. It is a recognizable symbol all over the world of this history and mutual encounters and meetings celebrated by the province of Hula in the year 2017 on the 225th anniversary. So this is where it sailed from, going these directions, and that's right here. And then it went down, and this is the Spanish maritime exploration that it followed on the white. And that was the journey. In the red is the journey of the Santa Maria in 1492. So from here to here, and then the maritime exploration with the Spaniards is all in the white. It says from the end of the 15th century and during the 16th century, Spanish ships set out to traverse the world's oceans. The Spanish ships opened the routes in the sea that joined the great continents for the first time: Europe, America, and Asia. Maritime routes that, for 3 centuries, were the main means of communication and mutual knowledge between them, and the longest in both distance and duration recorded in the history of sailing. See how it continues all the way over here. The Nano is a Spanish ship from Cantabria that completed the great ocean crossings and Spanish maritime expeditions to America and the Pacific in the 15th and 16th centuries. Its design was the result of the evolution of the Spanish shipbuilding in order to improve the characteristics of the ships and give them greater load capacity in the hold so that they could adapt to the growing maritime trade and be able to beat the windward with the minimum draught possible in order to sail through unknown lands. This is amazing. So that's the 15th century, 16th century, and the 17th century. Check this out. I'm gonna have to turn this video, which is probably gonna mess it all up. But the project of the wood and the ropes, of the plant fibers, pitch, bitumen, resin, and oil were used between the boards and in the hull. The Crockers placed burlap ropes to make them waterproof and impregnated the wood below the waterline with hot oil to protect them from the feared shipworm. Ew, a parasite that maliciously attacks wood on the ships, kind of like our termites. The total sail surface is approximately 250 meters squared. This is pretty cool. Again, I have to turn it. I'm sorry, you'll never get it all in. Let me go up here so you can see each part. So, this is the steering system for the ship right here. There's your poop deck. And this is your main mast, where the anchors are forged iron with wooden stock and the anchor ropes right there. Remember where the artillery is? We've seen the cannons on the upper deck. We're up top there. And so it says that the oak wood is structural pieces, pine wood is planking, masts and braces, olive and holm oak wood are the pulleys and the deadheads. The iron are the nails and the anchors. The hemp canvas are the sails. The hemp printed with tar are the ropes and standing rigging. And esparto are the anchor ropes. This looks like an assortment of like our beans. There's rice. It says the great challenge of the ocean's crossing on the ships was to calculate the position of the ships on the sea and to follow the course traced are to avoid dangers when approaching the unknown. The mariner's compass, quadrant, astrolabe, and timer, lead line, and log were the navigation instruments used on the Spanish galleys. And then there's a video, which I'm going to let it play. Not sure what it's for. It doesn't look like the ship. Oh, I see. It's how they made those parts. It's pretty cool. It's amazing. So, let's see what it says. Tropical wood is very durable and resistant to the weather, used for cladding the ship and other wooden pieces, battlements. Huh. They talk about hygiene and illness. Overcrowding on the ships of men with live animals, lice, fleas, rats, and the lack of drinking water meant that hygiene was visibly lacking. frequent would suffer diseases such as dreaded and deadly scurvy, health which was totally precocious in the hands of surgeons and barbers who could barely scratch wounds or perform bloodletting. Ew, gross. Gross, gross, gross. This is really cool. So this is a sand timer used by the pilots to measure the time in navigation. And this is used to measure the height of the sun over the horizon. That's pretty cool. The great challenge of the oceanic crossings on the ships was to calculate the position of the ship on the sea, to follow the course traced, and to avoid dangers when approaching an unknown cast. For this they had navigation instruments like these that helped them determine the latitude through the height of the sun, that made it impossible to calculate the longitude. The mariner's compass, quadrant, and sand timer, lead line, and log were navigation instruments used for the Spanish ships, which these could measure the height of the sun, the position of the ship, inspect and seabed, and determine the speed of the ship in order to draw the route on the navigation charts and determine the course to be followed. 20 crew members on board, 5 triple bunk beds, a captain's bed located in the quarters of the navigation bridge, an awning, and another 2 in the hold. Can't really see that one. I have trouble seeing it and I'm standing in front of it. This is how they sustained it, like how they do on cruise ships where they have the stabilizers. The design includes the result of new studies on the shapes of the famous vessel in order to achieve greater maneuverability and better control the steering. During the process, an indicated system was applied to the sector of the construction. So, right through here. So it affected the seaworthiness and the maneuvering. So this is how they did the stabilization and stuff back in the day. When we're on our cruise ships, they do it all electronically. And it wasn't done like that back then. How cool. The difficult sailing conditions didn't leave much time for entertainment. Despite the express provision of games on board, cards and dice ran along the decks without being hidden, and the men gambled their breeches, money, and weapons. Of course, they already said that. Arts such as swearing, blasphemy, theft, playing cards, nudity, or sexual activity were considered serious misconduct. And the penalties could range from the loss of salary, assets, to whipping, exile, or death. Crazy. At nightfall, the activity on board was that one watchman, the official on call, revised the ship, and the cabin boy lit the light in the binnacle, turned off the fire in the oven, and prayed on each turn of the sand timer, which sailors responded. In today's world, as bad as everybody cusses, that'd be a lot of praying. The lack of hygiene and illness was pretty bad, so harsh living conditions thousands of men experienced on board that throughout history. Crazy. The day was divided into 6-hour shifts for work, maintenance work, and others related to life on board. Every shift was directed by one of the ship officials, with a third of the sailors, apprentices, and cabin boys. The daily rations for the crew mainly consisted of wine, a sponge cake, twice baked bread with meal, which sometimes would be eaten rotten, wet, or full of worms. was their attire. This is so cool. Like we seen the clothes in the one bunk room. Here's the bathrooms on the back. I should say the front, underneath.